Hi everyone, Jacqueline Kuhn here with JacquelineKuhn.com, powered by angels, to talk to you about how the archangels did not get included in the modern Bible. I talk an awful lot about the 15 archangels, and many of you ask me, but they're not in the modern Bible. And here is the history behind that. First of all, you need to understand that most of the writings about the archangels were included in a writing called the Book of Enoch. That is the most prolific writing about the archangels. That was written in 200 to 100 before Christ era, BC, right? In the time between 200 and 100. And in that book, archangels in particular were considered the way to know the path to God's plan, right? They were a part of the cosmic fabric of the universe. They were divine creations, and they were to help show you the path that God had for you and help you in your worship of God. However, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were unearthed, only one portion or minor portions of the Book of Enoch were included in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And that was a problem to the scholars that created the current Bible as we know it today. The current Bible, the canonical works made up of the Bible that we know today, originated in 397 AD, about 400 years after the birth of Jesus, at what's known as the Council of Carthage. So during this council, all the scholars that got together decided not to include Enoch in the Bible that was going to be used in Christianity. At that time, it was the Catholic Church, right? What is now known as the Catholic Church, but it was decided that the Christian Bible was not going to include Enoch in the Old Testament, right? Old Testament, pre-Jesus, New Testament, post-Jesus. One exception, there is an Ethiopian Orthodox Christian church that has the first book of Enoch in their Old Testament version of their Bibles. Otherwise, it's not to be found. And it's because the scholars from at that time thought that it wasn't relevant enough, thought that the writings were too diverse, they couldn't take it from a single source. They felt that since the entire book wasn't in the Dead Sea Scrolls, only part of it, it probably wasn't being practiced. People weren't using it. And because people weren't using it, they decided not to include it. It wasn't like it was not, archangels weren't valid or it wasn't true or real. It was, people aren't using it, so let's just not include it. We've got plenty of other things to include in the Old Testament. And that's, I got honestly, really how it got out of the Old Testament. Now, the New Testament are writings about Jesus, right? They were written primarily about his disciples. And Jesus came to this earth because so few believed in and were following God that God wanted to incarnate as man so that humans could see, touch, experience God firsthand, right? If people weren't reacting and interacting with angels, they weren't praying to God, they created all their own gods, and God is like, hey, this has to stop. So he incarnated as man, and Jesus was born. The writings about Jesus in the New Testament are about Jesus. They're not about angels. They're not designed to be about angels. It's designed to be about Jesus. And thus, when writing about angels, the authors of the New Testament Gospels really talk to them in generic terms of the angels. The angel did this, an angel did that, an angel did this. They were supportive characters of Jesus and his disciples. And that's why archangels are not mentioned in the modern day Bible. They were detailed in the book of Enoch, which didn't make it in the Old Testament. And the New Testament is about Jesus, where angels exist, but the focus is on Jesus, not the angels, and they take a supporting role. So if you ever wonder why the archangels aren't named in the Bible, now you know. Thanks so much for watching this micro video. I look forward to seeing you soon.